Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. While everyone's watching the political theater in Washington, California just got absolutely demolished in federal court over one of their most restrictive gun laws. A federal judge delivered a ruling so devastating that it's sending shockwaves across the entire country and could change the Second Amendment landscape forever. But before I break down this massive victory and why it terrifies anti-gun politicians nationwide, smash that subscribe button because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. The shocking California defeat. What just happened in the Southern District of California is unprecedented. For over 2 decades, California has maintained one of the most restrictive non-resident carry bans in the nation, affecting millions of Americans who travel through or visit the state. Judge Kathy Ann Bencivengo didn't just issue a temporary restraining order or a narrow ruling. She delivered a complete summary judgment that obliterated the entire statute. This means California's ban on non-resident concealed carry permits, which has been in place since the early 2000s, is now completely unconstitutional and unenforceable across the entire state. California's outrageous constitutional argument. Here's where this gets absolutely mind-blowing, and this is the #1 reason this case changes everything. California's attorneys stood up in federal court and argued that non-residents aren't part of the people as defined by the Constitution. Think about that for a second. A state government literally claimed that constitutional protections don't extend to Americans based solely on their zip code. This wasn't some minor technicality or procedural argument. They fundamentally argued that the Second Amendment simply doesn't apply to roughly 320 million Americans when they enter California. The legal precedent this would have set is terrifying beyond comprehension. Judge Kathy Ann Bencivengo saw right through this constitutional absurdity and demolished their argument completely. In her ruling, she explicitly stated that constitutional rights follow the individual, not state residency status. This single legal principle just shattered the foundation that California and other restrictive states have used to justify decades of discriminatory gun laws. The ripple effects of this ruling extend far beyond just carry permits. It establishes that states cannot create different classes of constitutional protection based on where someone lives. The massive scope that changes everything. Previous Second Amendment victories in California were often limited in scope, sometimes applying only to specific plaintiffs or members of particular organizations. But Hoffman v. Bonta is different. This was a facial challenge to the entire statute, meaning the court struck down the law in its entirety. Every single American traveling to California now has the legal right to apply for a concealed carry permit, regardless of their home state. We're talking about potentially millions of people who were previously denied their constitutional rights, simply because they didn't hold a California driver's license. This isn't just about California either. At least 8 other states have similar non-resident restrictions that are now legally vulnerable. States like Hawaii, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland all maintain residency requirements for carry permits that could face immediate legal challenges based on this precedent. Legal experts are already predicting a cascade of lawsuits across these jurisdictions, with attorneys using the Hoffman decision as the blueprint for dismantling discriminatory permit systems nationwide. California's desperate legislative counterattack. California's anti-gun machine isn't taking this defeat quietly. Assembly Bill 1078 is their desperate attempt to neutralize this court victory through legislative manipulation. On the surface, the bill appears to comply with the court ruling by creating a pathway for non-resident permits. But the reality is far more sinister. They're essentially creating a bureaucratic nightmare designed to make exercising your rights as difficult and expensive as possible. The proposed requirements include psychological evaluations, costing hundreds of dollars, mandatory live-fire training courses, county-specific declarations, and permits that expire after just 2 years instead of the standard 5. This legislative response reveals California's true strategy. If they can't ban something outright, they'll regulate it into practical impossibility. The fees alone could easily exceed $1,000 per permit when you factor in training, evaluations, and administrative costs. They're banking on the hope that most people will simply give up rather than navigate their bureaucratic maze. This is exactly why this court victory matters so much. It forces California to show their hand and reveals the lengths they'll go to circumvent constitutional protections. Why this victory unlocks everything else. Here's what most people are missing about this ruling. It doesn't just affect non-residents. It fundamentally undermines the legal logic California uses to justify all their carry restrictions. If the Constitution protects non-residents from discriminatory treatment, then how can the state defend their county-by-county permit schemes that create wildly different standards for residents? Some California counties issue permits readily, while others have virtual bans. This ruling provides the constitutional framework to challenge these disparities. The legal ammunition this decision provides is staggering. Future challengers now have a federal court ruling stating that geographic discrimination in permit issuance violates constitutional principles. This opens the door to challenge everything from arbitrary denial standards to excessive fees to unreasonable delays in processing. California residents who have been fighting for years to get permits in restrictive counties now have a powerful precedent on their side. The state can no longer hide behind arguments about local control or public safety when their own system treats Americans differently based on invisible county lines. Legal crack in California's. But let's be completely honest about where we stand. This ruling doesn't create constitutional carry, doesn't eliminate the permit process, and doesn't force California to recognize other states' licenses. What it does create is a legal crack in California's anti-gun wall that could bring the entire system crashing down if we follow through strategically. The key is not celebrating this as a final victory, but using it as the foundation for the next wave of challenges. The response from gun owners has been mixed, and frankly, some of the frustration is completely justified. If you're a California resident who's been denied your rights for years, a victory that primarily helps out-of-state visitors can feel hollow. But this is how constitutional law works. Change happens incrementally, precedent by precedent, until the cumulative effect becomes undeniable. Every restrictive state is now watching California's response because they know their similar laws are next in line. Looking ahead, the real test comes with implementation and follow-through. Will California comply with this ruling, or will they drag their feet and force additional court action? Will other states proactively change their laws, or will they wait for individual lawsuits? The answers to these questions will determine whether this victory becomes a footnote or a turning point in the fight for Second Amendment rights. This case proves that the most important constitutional victories often happen in district courtrooms, where dedicated attorneys challenge unconstitutional laws one case at a time. The battle for Second Amendment rights is far from over. But rulings like this show that persistence and strategic litigation can crack even the most restrictive state systems. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening in the legal fight for gun rights, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown of these game-changing court decisions. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and share this video with anyone who needs to know about this massive victory. Stay informed, stay ready, and remember that our constitutional rights don't defend themselves. We do.